On Thursday evening, Elena returned from Milan. Pushing her suitcase into the entrance hall, she greeted me with a kiss and hinted at a surprise in the car. I went outside to assist her. She extracted a flat package from the trunk, wrapped in brown paper, which turned out to be a gift from an art gallery she'd been collaborating with. They had experienced a successful quarter, and one of their artists wanted to give Elena a piece. Her joy was evident. We carefully unwrapped it together in the living room to reveal a large, semi-abstract portrait of a woman. Although the face was painted in broad strokes without an exact resemblance, something about it felt acquainted. I moved closer and observed that the neckline and head turn were reminiscent of Elena's at home. I then spotted a tiny dark mole, the same mole my wife bore. It seemed unlikely that the artist had noticed this detail by chance. I stood motionless. The precision of the coincidence felt too striking. Elena reappeared on the stairs wearing a robe and a towel around her hair. She passed by me, studied the painting once more, and commented about its ideal placement, perhaps the dining room or her bedroom. I suggested the dining room, to which she nodded and headed towards the kitchen. I lingered before the painting, dimmed the lights afterwards, and eventually followed her upstairs. There was no need yet to discuss it, but it was impossible not to notice it either. The following evening, Elena presented me with her tablet in the kitchen. She wanted me to review a fresh collection from one of her artists. I browsed through the gallery folder at the counter, glancing at studio shots and half-finished canvases on easels. I wasn't focused. Suddenly, the app closed itself, revealing the home screen with a memory card at the top. Clicking it, I found myself 6 months back, looking at a hazy night street in the first photo, a glass of wine on a table in the second, and the third image arrested me. Possible paraphrase. She moved past me, inspected the artwork again, and hinted about its optimal positioning, possibly the dining room or her bedroom. I endorsed the dining room proposal, and she walked into the kitchen. I stood by the painting for a while longer, then lowered the lights and ascended upstairs after her. There was no reason yet to voice any concerns, but it was impossible not to take notice of it either. The ensuing evening, Elena delivered her tablet to me in the kitchen. She desired my opinion on a recent collection from one of her artists. I navigated through the gallery folder at the counter, viewing studio shots and half-completed canvases mounted on easels. My attention was scattered. Suddenly, the app shut off automatically, revealing the home screen with a memory card displayed atop it. Tapping it, I was transported 6 months back, where I saw a blurry image of a dark street at night in the first snapshot, a glass of wine on a table in the second, and the third photograph halted me. In a quaint cafe bathed in soft light and featuring a brick backdrop, Elena sat engaged in hearty laughter with a man of similar age, his dark hair speckled with gray, casually dressed with an open collar. The face was unfamiliar to me. I concealed the photographs on my tablet and returned it to its original spot. Elena placed a cup before me, inquiring if her collection was robust. I confirmed it was. Following her retirement to bed, I ventured into the living room where the portrait remained propped against the couch. Upon tilting it forward, I discovered a subtle, neat signature at the bottom right corner, M. Galdini. A quick search on my phone for Marco Galdini painter revealed an interview from an Italian art magazine as the top result. The article was accompanied by a photograph depicting a studio setting, hands in pockets, with the same man sporting graying dark hair and an open collar, mirroring the individual I'd observed at the cafe. 2 weeks elapsed, and Elena inaugurated a group exhibition at her Chelsea gallery. Marco Galdini was one of the 4 artists showcased, prompting me to honor my commitment to attend. I arrived around 8. The room was bustling with people sipping wine and conversing quietly. Across the floor, I spotted Elena acknowledging me by lifting her glass before continuing her conversation with an art collector. Marco had a solitary wall filled with paintings, in the center of which hung the portrait from our living room, a piece now included as part of the exhibit. I found myself standing before it. 2 females near me were discussing the artist, commenting on how much he was inspired by her and expressing wonder at his transformation. Even his new works bore her preferred color schemes. Ignoring them, I fixed my gaze upon the canvas like any ordinary guest. I continued along the wall, finding the same woman depicted over and over again, different poses, settings, and palettes, but the same facial features, the same hairstyle gathered in the same manner. In 3 of the paintings, there was a small, dark mole I recognized. More than half of his recent work centered around one subject, Elena. Drifting towards one of her colleagues, a younger curator I'd previously met at her holiday party, I struck up conversation. I inquired about her experience collaborating with the Italian artist Marco. She responded warmly, "Marco is wonderful. Elena makes things seamless. Since she stays at his place when she visits, they get a lot accomplished. He resides in a small town in Tuscany." This was said casually, like discussing a meal eaten previously. I thanked her and moved back towards the wine table. I was still seeking one indisputable fact. The following morning, Elena departed early for the gallery. After waiting until her car turned the corner, I entered the bedroom. Her travel bag remained by the closet, indicating she hadn't fully unpacked from the Milan trip. Knowing she keeps boarding passes for travel expense records, and having done it this way for years, I opened the side pocket of her bag. A stack of folded boarding passes, held together with a binder clip, was inside. It appeared to be a year's worth. I transferred them to the kitchen table and organized them by date. Every trip Elena logged, as Milan consisted of 2 flights. Initially Milan, followed by the same day or the following morning, a brief flight within. Pisa visited once, Florence the next, and then Pisa again. Each return ticket was from a compact Tuscan airport to Milan, later homebound. A 300-mile deviation on every journey. All the trips had this pattern. I double-checked the dates again. They mirrored what the curator stated at the opening, almost verbatim. A Tuscan town served as his residence when she visited. Photos of each passage were taken with my phone, both sides clearly displaying the dates. I reassembled them as found and stored them in a side pocket. The bag was zipped. I moved to the kitchen, prepared coffee, and stood at the window for a while. No further explanations were necessary. The next query was more straightforward. What would I do about this situation? Over the weekend, Elena traveled to Basel for business. I had the apartment to myself. I made coffee, sat down at my desk, and opened Marco's public profile. Marco had a studio in Tuscany, exhibited in Milan, Berlin, and New York, with interviews focusing on his artistic process, lighting, and palette, yet no personal details were disclosed, no spouse or family visible. However, my curiosity led me to uncover Marco's Italian wife, Alessia Galdini. She maintained a distinct public profile in Italian. Their family-owned vineyard outside Montalcino, leisurely lunches beneath olive trees, a golden retriever, her parents, siblings, cousins, all were frequent subjects in her posts. In every third photograph, Marco was present, affectionately embracing Alessia or raising a toast at family events. I retraced my steps, and a year ago I discovered a post about the estate. The land had been in her family for 4 generations, with the main house, cellar, and studio where Marco worked all belonging to her family's property and managed by her side. She wrote of it with pride, suggesting that Marco could have let go of his past relationship, Elena. The New York curator couldn't stand to lose Alessia. He could replace a market, a studio, a house, or land, but not her. The social fabric of a small Tuscan town where her family had been prominent for generations hinged on her presence. This was the critical point. I closed my laptop and took a walk along the promenade. By the time I returned, I knew my plan. On Monday, I booked a flight to Florence for the following Friday night. I spent one night there, returning Sunday afternoon. I charged it to my business card to keep it off our joint statement. That evening, Elena asked about my weekend plans. I told her it was a brief work trip, a meeting with a supplier outside of town. She didn't press for details and went back to her laptop. For the rest of the week, things carried on as usual. Mornings at the office, evenings at home, routine discussions about our schedules. She mentioned her next trip to Italy in 3 weeks. I informed her it was acceptable. In the evenings following her sleep, I returned to the desk. I required Marco's studio address, not the vineyard, specifically his studio situated in the hills, where Elena resided when she visited. I revisited his interviews once more, focusing on the older ones. A piece from approximately 4 years ago contained a detailed description that I needed. An old stone farmhouse on a ridge above Montalcino was mentioned, along with the road turning off after a specific church and the view of the valley from the south window. He'd even named the nearby village. He took pride in this place. He told the journalist everything necessary for my purpose. I compared the description with satellite images until I located the building, then pinned it. The following Friday, I printed one item and put it in a folder, a clear photo of the portrait from our living room featuring a visible mole. I packed a small carry-on with a suit, a shirt, and the folder. Elena departed for the gallery before I left for the airport. At the door, she gave me a kiss and advised safe travels. I assured her I would. Upon arrival in Florence Friday night, I stayed at an airport hotel, collected a rental car at 7 a.m., and embarked on a journey south that lasted about 2 hours. The route was marked by vineyards, cypress trees, and roads growing progressively narrower as they climbed. Montalcino was passed before taking the road described by Marco, leading to a dirt track ascending a ridge. As anticipated, the studio was in the form of an old stone farmhouse with weathered shutters and a pickup parked beneath an olive tree. I parked beside it, retrieved the folder from the passenger seat, and approached the door. Marco himself opened it, wearing an old t-shirt stained with paint. Initially, he didn't recognize me, but there was a change in his expression, and the polite smile faded. I walked past him without delay, placing the folder on his work table. He remained rooted at the doorway, unwilling to move. I unfolded the folder, revealing the portrait photo with the mole clearly visible. "I'm Daniel Carter, Alina's husband." He became ashen, remained silent. "I'm aware of your involvement with my wife. I didn't come here to debate about it." The prolonged quietness ensued. "This studio resides on Alesha's family's land, the vineyard, the house, everything belongs to her. In this tiny town, her family is your lifeblood." He glanced at the photograph, then at me. "You terminate your relationship with Alina. Today, no justifications for her, no second chances. If it isn't concluded by tonight, Alesha will learn everything tomorrow morning." I left the file on the table. He remained motionless. I departed, got back into the car, and began my descent from the hill. I returned Sunday evening, arriving home around 10. Alina was on the couch with her laptop and a glass of wine. She looked up, asked about the trip. I replied that it was uneventful. She resumed her screen activities. I unpacked, took a shower, and retired for the night. The next morning, I prepared coffee and washed her without drawing attention to it. She was using her phone excessively, picking it up, glancing at it, setting it down, and then doing so again after a brief interval. At some point, she moved towards the hallway and made an attempt to call someone. I heard her utter "hi" twice in a voicemail message. Afterwards, she returned without saying anything and took a seat. She skipped breakfast, only drinking coffee. By afternoon, her countenance had clouded over. It was not weariness she exuded, but something else. For lunch, she abstained and remained within her office with the door closed. That evening, she barely touched dinner, inquired about my Monday, and listened politely without truly hearing. Tuesday morning, she did not descend at all. I brewed coffee for one. I could discern her conversation on the phone from upstairs, a hushed tone interspersed with long pauses. By the time I departed for work, she was still in the bedroom. I didn't pose any questions. It appeared Marco had chosen his path. The specifics of what he'd told or written to her, I did not know and had no wish to learn. That day, I contacted a divorce lawyer and initiated the legal proceedings. The following Tuesday, I departed for work as usual. Upon entering the kitchen, I found Alina in a robe, her eyes red, clutching an untouched coffee cup. She didn't respond when I exited. Upon arriving home at around 7, the apartment was unusually quiet compared to the previous night. The absence of Alina's car from the garage and the half-cleared side of our closet confirmed my suspicions before I even switched on the lights. Her car wasn't there, her section of the wardrobe was partially emptied, and the drawer containing her passport stood open and void. On the kitchen counter, beside her house key, lay a note, just 2 lines in her handwriting. "I'm leaving, don't search for me." I remained standing there, gripping the key. I chose not to contact her. We had already said everything that needed saying. The ensuing week was void of any communication, no phone calls, no messages. A few of her friends inquired about my well-being and asked if I knew where she was. I informed them I didn't. This statement held truth. Last Friday, I received a bank alert. Our shared account was depleted, leaving only half its original balance on her side. She withdrew what was rightfully hers, nothing more, nothing less. I closed the app and set aside my phone. Over the weekend, the apartment seemed to find a new equilibrium, devoid of conversations waiting at home and an empty schedule to manage. By Monday morning, I was back at work. The marriage had ended. The ensuing process involved paperwork. The divorce proceeded swiftly. Alina authorized all documents via her lawyer without any objections. Neither of us met again afterwards. A few months later, I learned from a common acquaintance that Marco's art exhibition never materialized. 6 weeks before the scheduled opening, he suddenly refused to deliver crucial pieces. For several days, he ignored the gallery's calls. Despite Alina's attempts to salvage the project by rescheduling dates and seeking investor patience, the volatile art market prefers certainty over delay. Some prominent collectors reneged on their prearranged funds. Consequently, investors withdrew. Once the exhibition was ultimately terminated, the gallery suffered a significant financial setback. A few months following this event, Alina shut down the enterprise and departed from New York. Marco's American show constituted his main entry into the market, and its absence hindered new projects. Over the subsequent half-year, only brief mentions appeared in trade publications about Marco stepping back from several upcoming ventures to take an extended creative break. After Alina left, the portrait with the mole remained in storage. Several months later, I sent it to a charity auction. I wished to eliminate any items in the apartment that triggered memories of that narrative. I continued residing in my Brooklyn Heights apartment. Life returned to its customary pace, encompassing my business, morning coffee, and peaceful evenings. Thank you for your likes. Subscribe. Unfolding, many unspoken stories await.